The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger. Chapter 5. I threw myself, now heart and soul, into the task of making ready for my first voyage. Bulger was not slow to understand what all the hurry-scurry meant. He was delighted at the prospect of a trip to distant lands where life had less monotony about it. By the hour, he would sit and watch me in my labors, and from time to time, to please him, I pointed out some articles lying here and there about the room, and bade him fetch them, which he invariably did, with many manifestations of pleasure at being permitted to help his little master. In fact, everybody lent a hand most kindly, so that, to my great satisfaction, I was left more time for the study of navigation. My poor mother, the gracious Baroness, would not permit anyone else to mark my clothing. With her own slender white fingers, she worked the crests and initials of my wardrobe. There was a matter which I turned over in my thoughts for several days, to wit, what national garb I should adopt. After long and mature deliberation, I resolved to attire myself in Oriental dress. I did so for several reasons. It had been a favorite garb of mine. Its picturesque grace appealed to my love of the beautiful, while, on the other hand, its ease and lightness made it very agreeable to one of extreme suppleness of limb and elasticity of step. While the old manor house was being literally turned topsy-turvy and everybody from the cook to the chambermaid set by the ears, the elder baron was by no means idle. He took good care, among other things, that I was well provided with wholesome reading matter, and brought me several books of maxims, precepts, reflections, thoughts, and studies, which he requested me to thrust into the empty corners of my chests. For, he said to me, and that too with a great show of reason, thou wilt have many idle hours on thy hands in calm weather. It behooves thee to feed thy mind, lest its wonderful development be checked, and thou become as an ordinary child, with no thoughts above games and picture books. My poor mother, the gracious Baroness, added to this stock of good literature by presenting me with a small volume entitled The Straight Road to Good Health, or Everybody His Own Doctor. As to my medicine chest, I gave that my personal supervision, for I was always skilled in the art of reading all kinds of symptoms and was gifted with the rare faculty of knowing almost instinctively what remedy to give for a certain ailment, without first experimenting upon the patient by trying one thing after another, as is the common with most people who pretend to heal sickness. Everything was going well now, and I was in the best of spirits, when the elder baron came to me with a proposal which, for some reason, I can hardly tell why, displeased me, although it would seem that it ought to have had the opposite effect. He proposed to precede me by a week or 10 days to the North Sea, in some port of which I intended to purchase and fit out a swift, staunch vessel, purchase the vessel himself, give his personal attention to fitting her out, and shipping a crew of picked men. What could I do? If I refused his offer, it would have been tantamount to a confession of distrust on my part. Can he have in mind any project to thwart my scheme? Oh, perish the thought! But I must confess that I did not accept his proffered service without serious misgivings. This sudden anxiety on the part of the elder baron to hurry my departure, after having opposed it so long and so vigorously, made me a little uneasy in my mind. Before setting out for the North Sea to purchase a ship for me, the elder baron entered my apartment and spoke as follows. Pardon me, little baron, for interrupting thy labors, for I perceive that thou art deep in the study of navigation. Speak, baron, I said, looking up with a mischievous smile. That right belongs to thee. I have a last request to make, he continued in his usual calm manner, nor is it a matter of very great importance. Rather, it is a whim, more than aught else. Thou knowest from my lips and from the perusal of our family chronicles that we are in ancient time very large landowners on the coast of the North Sea. We controlled several ports, were extensively engaged in trade, sending out at least a score of ships on a 12-month. One of the ports of our domain was a famous one, famous for the extraordinary character of its inlet and outlet currents, channel, etc. It was said of this port that it was more dangerous than the open sea, that vessels were really safer out of it than in it. I know not how much of truth may be in all this, but I do know that one man, an ancestor of ours, not only sailed into it, but safely out again. For thou must know that the channel by which a vessel gained admission to this port could not be used to leave it again, as the irresistible current always flowed the one way, namely, from the sea into this mysterious basin. To leave it, the bold mariner must trust his bark to another channel, and therein lurked the danger. It would gratify me greatly, little baron, if thou couldst prove to the world that no matter how difficult other captains once found and now find it to sail out of this port, yet to thee it offered no insurmountable obstacles, and therefore I am come to ask thee to set sail for this port. It is called, I asked carelessly, as I turned to a chart of the North Sea. Port No Man's Port, replied the baron. I like its name, said I. Order my ship to await me there. The elder baron arose and, bending his body with stately grace, withdrew. I accompanied him to the door and dismissed him with most respectful obeisance. Port No Man's Port, I answered. Ah, here is the chart. The descriptive text reads as follows. Abandoned for many years, ingress easy, egress so dangerous as to mean fatal injury, if not destructive, to sailing craft. Outer channel blocked by a fearful whirlpool and swinging rock called Thor's Hammer. Inner basin extremely dangerous from constantly shifting sands. Closed by order of the Royal Ministry of Commerce and Marine. Upon finishing the reading of these words, I sprang up and began to pace the floor, wildly and half unconsciously. The blood rushed in upon my brain. I was obliged to halt and cling to the back of a tall oak chair, or I should have staggered and fallen to the ground. Bulger was greatly alarmed and sent up a suppressed howl of grief. I spoke to him as calmly as I could to comfort him. After a few moments, the vertigo passed off and my mind cleared up completely. Nay, it is impossible, I whispered. The elder baron could not be guilty of bad faith to me. Away with such a thought. He errs through thoughtlessness and lack of experience. He little knows the terribly dangerous character of the task he is setting me. To him, the talks of shipwreck and death within Port No Man's Port are but the legends of old-time sailor life. He has not the faintest suspicion that his request, so lightly made, exposes his only child, son, and heir to a princely fortune and honored name, either to be engulfed by these shifting sands, sucked down to destruction by this fearful whirlpool, or crushed by a blow from Thor's hammer. And yet, why murder? It is too late to protest. Already the elder baron has proclaimed to the world the, to him, piece of news that his son was about to renew the old-time glories of his family. I must do one of two things: face these dangers like a man of cool, calm courage, or condemn myself to a life of dull and listless activity, the magnate of a province and not the hero of two worlds. No, the die is cast. I have said it, and it is as good as done. My ship sails from Port No Man's Port, or this little body feeds its fish that day. Doubtless my eyes brightened and my cheeks took on a glow of crimson hue, for Bulger, who had been listening to my soliloquy with a most pained expression on his face, as he vainly tried to get at the meaning of my words, now broke out into a very lively succession of barks, bounding and springing about the room in the wildest merriment. He knew only too well that some terrible struggle had been going on in my mind. Now he realized that all was well. Faithful creature, if he could only tell his love, how he would put all human lovers to blush. As the hour drew near for me to bid adieu to the baronial hall, that good lady, the gracious Baroness, my mother, suddenly thought of 1,001 things which she deemed of the very greatest importance to me. She warned me that I was not to sleep in a draught, not to partake of freshly baked bread, not to drink cold water while overheated, not to cut my fingernails too short, nor to sleep with my mouth open, not to wear my underwear longer than 1 week, not to neglect to brush my teeth, not to fail to have my hair cut with the new moon, not to strain my eyes reading by a poor light, not to swallow my food without thoroughly chewing it, not to laugh while I had food in my mouth, not to attempt to stop a sneeze, not to neglect to pare my corns, not to pick my teeth with a metal point, not to examine the ends of my nose without a looking glass, not to eat meat without pepper or vegetables without salt, not to exert myself after a hearty meal, not to stand upon one leg while it was asleep, not to walk so fast as to get a pain in my side, not to go to sleep until I had first rested on my right side, not to fail to take a pill if I saw flashes in the dark, not to neglect to tie a stocking around my neck in case my throat felt sore, etc., etc., etc. When the moment came to take leave of the gracious Baroness, my good mother, I was deeply moved. All the servants and retainers from indoors and out filed in front of me, kissed my hand, and showered blessings on me. I may safely say that the only being present not moved to tears was Bulger. He was so anxious to get under way that he passed an hour or so racing from the manor house to the carriage and back again in a piteous endeavor to get the procession started. Start we did at last. 100 hands waved us a fond farewell. The stately trees that shut in the baronial hall swayed solemnly. I was glad when we rolled out of the courtyard, for I needed rest and quiet. My nerves had been on such a stretch for the past month that a change of scene brought me balm and relaxation. My journey to the North Sea was quiet and uneventful. I found my ship safely anchored in Port No Man's Port, and the elder baron there in charge of her. He introduced me to the sailing master, pressed me in his own loving arms, and with a gracious smile and stately wave of the hand, seated himself in the family coach. His only adieu was, "My son, thy wisdom comes to thee by inheritance. Thou couldst not have acquired it. Therefore, make a noble use of so noble a gift. Farewell." I bent my head in silence. The carriage rolled away. I stood alone. Nay, a true and loving friend was there. He looked up with his large, lustrous eyes, as if to say, "Don't be sad, little master. No matter who goes, I stay by thee forever." Turning to my sailing master, I ordered the ship's launch to be manned, and began at once a survey of the mysterious port in which my ship lay anchored. I found it to be a roomy basin, shut in by a rock-bound shore. In places, the waters slept beneath the black and glassy surfaces. In others, all was movement and commotion. Its waves came boiling and bubbling against the launch with swirling masses of white sand, shifting hither and thither as if condemned to perpetual unrest. The fact that my men, while fishing in different parts of the bay, often caught deep sea fish proved to me that Port No Man's Port was traversed by a channel from 4 to 6 fathoms in depth. The only difficulty would be to fix the boundaries of this constantly shifting path long enough to sail across the basin. I next turned my attention to the whirlpool. It marked the junction of the outer channel with the basin of Port No Man's Port. Having purchased a number of condemned hulks for the purpose of testing the strength and fury of the whirlpool, I caused a strong hawser to be rigged to a capstan on shore, and was in this way enabled to let the launch approach within a ship's length of the whirlpool with perfect safety. In truth, it was, when roused to the full measure of its fury by the intrusion of any large floating body, a sight to strike terror to the stoutest heart. And we're going to pause here and continue with this rousing tale of sailing out of port, no man's port, in the next video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.